Here's something no one will tell you. The moment you stop trying to occupy her mind is precisely when you become impossible to forget. Most men spend their entire lives chasing validation, sending good morning texts, and analyzing response times. They're playing a game they've already lost. But the man who understands the ancient principle of detachment, he becomes magnetic without effort. I'm going to reveal 7 unmistakable signs that a woman cannot stop thinking about you, and more importantly, why this happens when you embody true masculine presence. This isn't about manipulation or games. This is about understanding the deeper psychology of attraction and how your energy creates ripples in ways you never imagined. The Stoics understood something profound about human nature. We are most drawn to what we cannot easily possess. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the power of emotional equilibrium. Seneca spoke of inner strength that requires no external validation. These weren't abstract philosophical concepts, they were practical truths about how attraction actually works. When you operate from a place of genuine self-possession, when you're focused on your mission rather than her response time, when you embody the calm confidence that comes from knowing your worth, you trigger something primal in the feminine psyche. You become the exception in a world full of men who are emotionally dependent, reactive, and desperate for approval. The irony of attraction is that the less you need it, the more powerfully you create it. Number 1, she initiates contact more than you do. The first sign is simple but profound. She starts reaching out first. But here's what most men miss. This isn't just about who sends the first text. It's about the energy behind the interaction. When a woman can't stop thinking about you, she finds reasons to connect. She'll send you something she thought you'd find interesting. She'll ask your opinion on decisions that she's perfectly capable of making herself. She'll share moments from her day that she doesn't share with others. This happens because you've created what psychologists call an open loop in her mind. Think of it like a song stuck in your head, but instead of a melody, it's your presence. She reaches out not because she needs something from you, but because thinking about you has become a habit her mind craves. The key insight here is this. You didn't create this by being available 24/7 or by bombarding her with attention. You created it by being memorable, by bringing value to every interaction, by leaving conversations on a high note rather than dragging them into the ground through neediness. Most men, when they notice this pattern, make a fatal mistake. They think, great, now I have her attention, and they start overinvesting. They begin matching her energy, responding immediately, becoming available whenever she reaches out. This is where they lose everything they've built. The Stoic approach is different. You appreciate her interest without becoming dependent on it. You respond when it serves both of you, not because you're afraid of losing her attention. You maintain the very qualities that attracted her in the first place: your centeredness, your mission focus, your emotional independence. Number 2, she remembers everything you say when someone occupies your thoughts consistently. Every detail becomes significant. She'll bring up something you mentioned in passing 3 weeks ago. She'll remember your preferences, your goals, the story you told about your childhood. This isn't coincidence. This is her subconscious mind cataloging information about someone who has captured her attention. But here's the deeper truth. She remembers because you gave her something worth remembering. In a world where most conversations are surface-level exchanges designed to kill time, you brought depth. You shared your authentic thoughts. You asked questions that made her think. You created moments of genuine connection. This is where many men get it backwards. They think they need to remember everything about her to seem interested. They take mental notes about her favorite color, her coffee order, her work schedule. While thoughtfulness is valuable, this approach misses the point entirely. The magnetic man doesn't try to remember everything. He says things worth remembering. He shares insights that challenge her thinking. He tells stories that reveal character rather than just plot. He asks questions that go beneath the surface. When she remembers everything you say, it's because your words carried weight. You weren't filling silence with noise. You weren't speaking just to keep her attention. You were communicating from a place of substance, and substance sticks. This is why the ancient philosophers emphasized the power of few, well-chosen words over many empty ones. Quality of communication trumps quantity every time. The man who speaks less but says more becomes unforgettable. #3. She seeks your approval on decisions. This one reveals something fundamental about human psychology. When someone can't stop thinking about you, your opinion starts to matter disproportionately. She asks what you think about her new job opportunity, her weekend plans, even her outfit choices. This isn't dependency. It's her subconscious mind integrating your perspective into her decision-making process. But here's what this really means. You've become a reference point in her mind. She's not just asking for your opinion. She's checking her thoughts against someone she respects and admires. Your judgment has become valuable to her because she sees you as someone who has figured something out about life. This happens when you demonstrate consistent good judgment in your own life. When your actions align with your words, when you make decisions from principles rather than emotions, when you've shown that you think through consequences and act with intention. Most men, when they recognize this pattern, make one of two mistakes. Either they become overly directive, trying to control her choices, or they become wishy-washy, afraid to give real opinions because they don't want to influence her wrongly. The Stoic response is neither. You give honest, thoughtful input when asked, but you never try to control the outcome. You respect her autonomy while sharing your perspective. You understand that your role isn't to make her decisions, it's to be someone whose judgment she values. The profound irony is that the more willing you are to let her make her own choices, even when they differ from your advice, the more she values your input. Independence is attractive. Control is repelling. #4. She brings you up in conversations with others. When someone can't stop thinking about you, you naturally become part of their narrative. She mentions something you said during conversations with friends. She references your opinions when topics come up. Your name enters her vocabulary in organic ways because you've become part of how she processes the world. This isn't about bragging or showing off, it's unconscious integration. She's thinking about you enough that your perspectives have become part of her mental framework. When she encounters situations, she finds herself wondering what you would think or do. But here's the key insight. This only happens when you've demonstrated original thinking. When you've shown her perspectives she hadn't considered, when you've challenged her assumptions in ways that expanded her worldview rather than just contradicting for the sake of argument. The magnetic man isn't trying to be mentioned in her conversations. He's living in such an authentic, purposeful way that his influence naturally spreads. He's not performing for her friends or trying to make impressions. He's being so genuinely himself that he becomes memorable to everyone he encounters. This is why Stoics emphasized living according to virtue rather than reputation. When you focus on being rather than seeming, your influence becomes organic and lasting. You don't have to try to be talked about. You become someone worth talking about. The difference is profound. Men who try to insert themselves into her social narrative come across as needy and attention-seeking. Men who live with such integrity and purpose that they naturally become part of the conversation. They become unforgettable. #5, she tests your boundaries and emotional stability. This one catches most men completely off guard. When a woman can't stop thinking about you, she unconsciously tests your emotional foundations. She might disagree with you more often, push back on your opinions, or even create small conflicts to see how you respond. This isn't cruelty or game playing. It's her subconscious mind trying to understand what she's dealing with. She's thinking about you constantly, which means she's emotionally invested. An emotional investment creates a need for certainty. She needs to know if you're as solid as you appear or if you'll crumble under pressure like most men do. These tests come in many forms. She might suddenly become less available to see if you'll become desperate. She might disagree with your plans to see if you'll compromise your standards. She might even mention other men to gauge your reaction. Here's where most men fail catastrophically. They either become defensive and angry, or they immediately cave to avoid conflict. Both responses communicate the same thing: emotional instability. They show that your inner state depends on her behavior, which is exactly the opposite of what creates lasting attraction. The Stoic response is unshakable calm. You don't take her tests personally because you understand they're not really about you, they're about her need for security. You maintain your boundaries without anger. You stick to your standards without defensiveness. You demonstrate through your actions that you're exactly who you appeared to be. This is incredibly attractive because it's incredibly rare. Most men are emotionally reactive. They're easily thrown off balance by a woman's moods or behaviors. But the man who remains centered, regardless of external circumstances, he becomes a safe harbor in an emotionally turbulent world. 6. She mirrors your energy and interests. When someone occupies your thoughts consistently, unconscious mirroring begins. She'll start using phrases you use. She'll develop interest in topics you're passionate about. She'll even begin to mirror your energy levels and communication style. This isn't conscious imitation, it's psychological synchronization. Her mind is so focused on you that she begins to unconsciously adopt patterns from your personality. It's the same phenomenon that happens in close friendships or between people who spend significant time together, but accelerated because of the intensity of her focus on you. But here's what creates this level of influence. You've shown her a way of being that's appealing. Your energy, your interests, your approach to life has something she wants to integrate into her own experience. You're not just someone she's attracted to, you're someone she wants to learn from. This happens when you live with genuine passion and purpose. When your interests aren't just hobbies to pass time, but expressions of who you are. When your energy comes from internal motivation rather than external validation. When you demonstrate a way of being that's both attractive and admirable. Most men try to create this by telling women what they should be interested in or how they should act. They think influence comes from instruction, but real influence comes from inspiration. When you live in a way that's genuinely compelling, people naturally want to understand and integrate what makes you that way. The Stoics called this leading by example. You don't try to change anyone, you become someone worth emulating. You focus on developing yourself to such a degree that your way of being naturally influences others. This is infinitely more powerful than any direct attempt at persuasion. Number 7. She becomes possessive of your time and attention. The final sign is perhaps the most telling. She begins to show subtle possessiveness over your time and attention. This might manifest as comments about other women in your life, questions about how you spend your time when you're not with her, or attempts to secure more of your schedule. This isn't necessarily jealousy in the toxic sense. It's scarcity mindset around something she values highly. She's thinking about you constantly, which means your time and attention have become precious resources to her. She wants to ensure she has access to what she's come to value. But here's the crucial point. This possessiveness only emerges when your time actually feels scarce and valuable. If you're always available, always responsive, always ready to drop everything for her, your attention has no scarcity. There's nothing to be possessive about because she already has unlimited access. The magnetic man creates natural scarcity through having a life worth living. He has goals that require his focus. He has interests that demand his time. He has standards that limit his availability. He's not playing hard to get. He actually is hard to get because he's engaged in building something meaningful. When she shows possessiveness, the temptation is either to reassure her by giving her more access, or to exploit it by making her more jealous. Both approaches miss the point entirely. The Stoic response is to maintain the very qualities that created the dynamic. Your commitment to your purpose, your emotional independence, your selective availability. You acknowledge her investment without becoming dependent on it. You appreciate her desire for your time without making it the center of your universe. You remain the man who attracted her in the first place. Someone whose life is so compelling that being part of it feels like a privilege, not a right. Now, let me share the deeper truth that ties all of these signs together. None of this happens because you're trying to make a woman think about you constantly. It happens because you've become the kind of man who naturally occupies mental space through the quality of your presence and the authenticity of your character. The ancient Stoics understood that attraction isn't something you create through technique or manipulation. It's something you earn through becoming when you focus on developing yourself, when you live according to principles rather than reactions. When you build a life so compelling that you're genuinely busy living it, you naturally become someone worth thinking about. This is why chasing validation always backfires. When you're focused on whether someone is thinking about you, you're not focused on becoming someone worth thinking about. When you're analyzing her behavior for signs of interest, you're not developing the qualities that create genuine interest. The most attractive thing about a man isn't his looks, his wealth, or his status. It's his self-possession. It's the sense that he's complete with or without external validation. It's the understanding that he's building something meaningful and would continue building it regardless of who's paying attention. This creates what psychologists call intrinsic motivation. You're driven by internal satisfaction rather than external rewards. This is incredibly magnetic because it's incredibly rare. Most people are constantly seeking validation, approval, and recognition from others. But the person who generates these things internally, they become a source of stability in an unstable world. Here's the paradox that most men never understand. The moment you need these signs, they disappear. The moment you start looking for validation that she's thinking about you, you begin behaving in ways that make you forgettable. Neediness repels, not because women are cruel, but because desperation signals low value. When you need her attention to feel good about yourself, you've transferred your emotional power to her. You've made her responsible for your self-worth. This is an enormous burden that no healthy person wants to carry. But when you're genuinely focused on your own growth, your own mission, your own development, something magical happens. You stop needing these signs, which paradoxically makes them more likely to appear. You become attractive not because you're trying to be, but because you're busy becoming someone worth being attracted to. This is the ultimate Stoic principle applied to attraction. Focus on what you can control: your character, your choices, your responses, and let everything else unfold naturally. Don't try to control her thoughts. Become someone whose thoughts are worth having. Don't manipulate her attention. Earn it through the quality of your presence. So how do you apply this understanding? First, stop monitoring these signs. The moment you start keeping score of whether she's reaching out first or remembering what you said, you've missed the point entirely. These things happen naturally when you're focused on becoming rather than getting. Instead, focus on building a life so compelling that being part of it feels like an opportunity, not an obligation. Develop interests that genuinely fascinate you. Pursue goals that challenge and fulfill you. Build relationships with people who inspire and support you. Create value in everything you do. When you interact with women, or anyone for that matter, bring your full presence to the conversation. Listen not to respond, but to understand. Share not to impress, but to connect. Ask questions not to gather information, but to explore ideas together. Maintain your standards without apology. Know what you want, and be willing to walk away from what doesn't serve you. This isn't about being rigid or difficult, it's about respecting yourself enough to live according to your values, rather than compromising them for temporary validation. Practice emotional independence. Your happiness, your confidence, your sense of worth should come from internal sources. External validation, including a woman's attention, should be appreciated when it comes, but never needed for your well-being. Most importantly, remember that this isn't a strategy to get women to think about you. This is a strategy to become the kind of man worth thinking about. The difference is everything.